Hello and welcome to Walking the Earth podcast. Wherever you're hearing us from, please do subscribe to us, whether it's iTunes, SoundCloud, or Stitcher. Like us on Facebook.com/Walking the Earth podcast. And please do follow us on Twitter at WTE Podcast. And of course, check out our website with all these links, WTEpodcast.com. I'm Mike Margulies. Today I'm in Baltimore, Maryland, and I'm being joined by Lauren Miner. Lauren, welcome. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. And so, Lauren, you are, I guess, the one of the authors and the compiler of Juniper Tree. And so this is a kind of a book with several different women travelers' stories. Women who have traveled around, and these stories that, like any traveler, these experiences shape us and help us, and so you've kind of gathered a whole bunch of them together in an anthology of sorts.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. So it's a collection of stories by a diverse group of women from all over the world, who have lived all over the world, and really details the moments that really shape them into the people that they are today.
Awesome. And so you are these are women you've met personally, or you reached out to on like the internet, or?
Some of the women I do know personally, but a lot of them kind of came through friends. I sent out an email starting with about 50 women that I knew had traveled or had friends that had traveled, and I just kind of gauged some interest and saw if you have a story or if you know somebody who has a story, please feel free to put me in touch with them. And so kind of through that network, I've met a lot of women actually through Juniper Tree.
Yeah. That's actually, I can relate to that, like with the podcast too, because it's sort of like, you meet some people you meet in person, but then a guest introduces you to someone else, and then and you kind of play off of that, and the next thing you know, you got this whole network of people, and you're all kind of like playing together, and yeah, it's really cool how that ends up working out.
Exactly.
I bet I'm assuming you must have found, like I certainly with this podcast, I'm similarly talking to a diverse types of people, but there's still common threads you find, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so are you finding that ultimately, like, all these women that are different stories, unique perspectives, commonalities between them?
I think the commonality really comes in just the human experience. Like, we all have moments of fear, of triumph. We have moments where we're in love or when we're out of love, and it's just really satisfying to hear all these experiences and being able to connect with these women at the different points that they were at their lives. Whether or not you've traveled, the feelings are the same.
Right.
And so it's really nice to be able to kind of bring those together into one book.
Right. Actually, I think one thing about travel that I found is, you go through, like you're saying, right, like the same sort of human emotions. But in a sense, when you're traveling, it feels like a lot of them are heightened, though, right? And they're happening at such like a faster pace, right?
Yes. Yeah, that's for sure. I think when you're traveling, sometimes things feel way more dramatic than they probably are.
Right.
And maybe they are just as dramatic as you think they are. When you get back and you've got 20/20 vision on it. But I think that travel does put an intense pressure on changing yourself, on being your true self. It puts you in situations that you might not have ever encountered if you were at home. And so it just kind of tests you to test your boundaries, basically.
Yeah, I definitely can relate to that, because I think most travelers can definitely relate to that, because you're saying, you're out there and unexpected happens all the time. And in a sense, like, I don't know, it helped me to just become more comfortable with, like, things happening, just not everything happens the way you want, right,
Right.
And so and it helps you to and figure out who you are, too, like you were saying as well, and you come back and have with that rich experience, right, and you can learn, I mean, for you personally, like, I'm assuming were you contributing yourself to the book as well?
I am contributing. My story is not yet uploaded. I'm still working on it, trying to find the right words, as right. I know a lot of the women are that are working on the project. But I can tell you a little bit about what the story is that I'm going to write. I'm writing about this experience where I lost my passport in Bolivia. Well, basically it was stolen. And
what do you mean basically it was stolen?
Well, it was like a 4 a.m. shuffle from the bus getting into La Paz, and the purse, like, it was put down for a second, which I know is like, anybody who's listening is like, why would you put your purse down? It was 4 a.m. And we had been on this bus for like almost 24 hours, so keep that in mind. But anyway,
So you were a little weary, travel
a little
weary.
And it's not so much about the experience of how I get a passport while I'm there visiting, the U.S. consulate and that sort of thing. It's more about what I realized about myself, because I needed that passport to get out of Bolivia into Peru, where I was flying back to the States. And just what I realized about myself and what I was really stressed about, which for me, and I don't want to give too much away for my story, but it made me realize that I wasn't upset about losing the passport at all.
Okay.
I attached a lot of other feelings to losing items and what people would perceive me as, or what people thought of me when I lost things.
Right.
Or when I wasn't perfect. And so that's really what my story captures, is that moment when you really see a reflection of yourself and you really understand what you're really fearing when something goes wrong.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I think you're right. Like oftentimes we have, we associate something greater, with whatever it's not the thing we lost necessarily. It's some meaning to it, or what we think someone's going to think of us a lot of times, and so
right.
I guess you become more aware of that.
Yeah, and I think it's a message that's going to resonate with a lot of women,
Yeah.
because women in particular tend to be more type A or perfectionists, and so I think that at least I know amongst my friends it's something that we all kind of deal with and really learn to work within our own boundaries and kind of explore like our perfectionism and like how does it hold us back from a lot of things.
Right. And so obviously I don't have the perspective of being a woman, but I mean, are you alluding to sort of like, obviously women have higher expectations that, superficially, right? You have to wear makeup and do all these things and look a certain way. So is that what you mean? Like you have the expectation and you put on yourself, right? To become more perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a societal expectation in terms of image and then in terms of performance in the workplace, feeling like you have to be 100% all the time. And, it's the same old story, women trying to break the glass ceiling and that sort of thing, and our expectation of ourselves to be able to do that and still raise a family and still look great and basically be, just a million different images of perfection all at the same time. And nobody is perfect. And I think that, at least for me, travel not only showed me that nobody is perfect, which, I knew that, but I think it helped me understand what I was holding on to in my own state of perfectionism.
So are you saying like kind of travel allowed you to maybe let go of some of that and say like, hey, wait, what?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I first started writing my story, I thought about taking it in the direction of like shedding, my perfectionism, leaving it on the road or whatever, something dramatic and romantic like that. But honestly, I think that it didn't do that. I think what it did was it showed me that I had this unrealistic image of myself, an unrealistic expectation of what I should be accomplishing, of who I was, and it just opened the door.
Yeah.
And then, coming home, that was like the next adventure for me, to actually walk through that door and then start breaking it down.
Right. Yeah, it's awesome, and I can definitely relate to that. Obviously, different for me. I don't have the women's perspective on this, but there are aspects of that I can definitely relate to, because for me too, maybe to a different extent. I have images of myself. We all have, like, we're trying to show a version of ourselves, right, to others very often. Like and I think what travel helped me to do as well was to kind of figure out who I really am and like just be confident in that person. Like more so, just come back home, right, and come back home and say, yeah, I am me, and there's nothing I have to. I don't have to prove anything. Like, exactly as I am is great. And so I think travel for sure helped me to do that. It sounds like maybe similar.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's right on.
Yeah. Then so you got back. So we're both now in Baltimore. You got back. When did you get back from your trip?
I returned in July, just in time
so you've been
for 4th of July.
back a little before me. Okay, yeah, in time for the fireworks.
Yep, and to feel really American, after feeling very un-American.
And this, this is from the South America trip.
Yep.
Cool.
I was living for about 9 months in Argentina and traveling around. And then there was, in addition, about 3 months that we spent traveling to Uruguay, Chile, Bolivia, Peru.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I mean, you're a bit ahead of me as far as the coming back. So I get back from my trip to India and Southeast Asia in November, and although it still feels like so fresh to me, right? So it's been a few months, but I'm still like, so right now it's March, and it still feels fresh to me, and in a good way though. I guess I'd be interested to hear the perspective of, you've been back for a little bit longer, so that, do you feel more settled in? Like, what's the process been like, just in general? What's that the homecoming and settling back experience?
That's a good question, because I feel like when you first get back, everything feels a little bit off. Like you walk into a kitchen and you're like, dishwasher? What is this magical thing? But it's like, it's taken really quite a few months for me to feel settled back in. And I'll say that it still feels fresh to me, my experience. Like, I probably think of my Argentina trip every day, and it makes me hungry for my next adventure.
Right.
And I'm sure being a part of this project of Juniper Tree really helps keep it at the forefront of my mind. But I'm really most aware of it when I'm seeing people for the first time that I haven't seen in a long time, because it's the thing that we talk about.
Right.
And it's the thing that it's so hard to convey how you changed.
Yeah.
And people don't really know the questions to ask when it comes to
that's true.
how did this change you? They want to know, like, what did you see? Like, what was your favorite food? What was the weirdest thing that you did? And those are totally legitimate questions.
Yep.
But like, there's definitely a certain time frame that you need to process your experience. Like, if you don't reflect on the time that you had while you were traveling, you're kind of missing out on a large part of that experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny you say that, because I think if you haven't done this kind of extended travel, you might think that it's about seeing the places and seeing the landmarks or whatever it is. But I know for me, it ultimately was about the people I met, the relationships, and like the experiences, more so than any landmark I saw or tourist attraction. Those things were really kind of secondary to, at least for me. And it seems to be a common thread among people.
Oh, I completely agree. I think I saw a lot of amazing things in Buenos Aires, but if you ask me about my trip, the things that I want to tell you about are my experience, losing my passport in Bolivia,
right.
Or I want to tell you about other crazy things that happened from getting to Bolivia to Peru, or people who I met, who really changed who I was, or really opened my mind to different things.
Yeah, it's that's the thing. Like, it's a common thread on this show for sure. Is that comes down, I keep saying it, like the relationships, all those people you meet, and you just have that opportunity, right? You get to meet people from all over. I mean, obviously you're immersed already in a different culture, and then you're also surrounded by other travelers from different places, and so you're just constantly encountering people with different stories, and it really challenges you, and that somehow I always find there's like a lot more in common than there is separate. Like every person I'm meeting traveling.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you meet many people. I mean, the reason why they've chosen to travel, for example, or just the fact that they love to travel. Like, if you are on the road and somebody else is on the road, chances are you both are craving new experiences and new opportunities, and there's a conversation right there that, of course, can be shared over some, alfajores or cerveza. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's some sort of like an inherent similarity between you, right? Yeah, if you are a traveler and you meet someone who's a traveler, they could be from, they could be from Germany, or they could be from South Africa, whatever. But you're gonna, they're even still you're gonna have like some kind of shared thread with each other, because you have that spirit inside of you and so you're like kin somehow, like, and it's often that funny, like traveling. I'd sit down at a random hostel, right, and then I would make best friends immediately. It's like, oh, we're so alike.
And I think expats look out for one another.
Yeah,
there's a community there that everybody knows that when you're traveling either by yourself or even just with another friend, you're out there to explore. You may be putting yourself out there for the first time, and so people kind of want to help you
Yep.
just as much as they want to feel comforted and make a connection with another human being. I just felt like there were so many people along the way who wanted to make sure that my travel experience was a success.
Yeah, absolutely. And did you speak Spanish as well?
I do, poorly, but yes.
Un poquito.
Yes.
So if you're traveling through South America, having a little bit of Spanish background, though, I'm sure helped to also integrate with the locals a little bit in that way as well. So,
Yeah.
I would like to. I've been to South America, but only for a short trip. I'd like to go back and maybe practicar mi español a little bit. I think that would be a good experience. Did you find when I picked up on some of the languages a little, even less than I know Spanish, traveling in Asia and stuff. But I found that to be, I guess I'm thinking it'd be a really nice experience. I'd be interested to pick your brain a little bit about what it's like. If I were to go to South America with a little bit of Spanish background, that'd be really cool to get a little bit deeper into making friends with locals and deeper relationships, that is.
Yeah. So it's interesting. So I came to South America with some Spanish background. My boyfriend who was traveling with me had no Spanish background, and he started trying to do some Rosetta Stone.
Right.
Like once we got down there, and it's interesting. Like you definitely pick it up
Yep.
along the way, and the important phrases like "I need a drink" or "Where's the bathroom?"
Yeah.
Like you'll pick those up really
Right.
quickly.
Necesito una cerveza.
Una vez más. And so it's amazing. I will say that one thing that's hard, particularly in South America, where people really they do want to learn English. So I found a lot of natives did not want to talk Spanish with me. If they could practice their English, they were
Right.
going to go for it. And then there's also, if you do hang out in the expat community, English tends to be
Right.
the universal
Well, it's
language.
become this international language,
Yeah.
which is really convenient for Americans
us,
like
but-
us, right? Yeah, because we can essentially go and it's very convenient. Almost anywhere in the world you can go and you could get by with English. Maybe I'm sure there's some places there it'd be more difficult, but by and large, most of the world now, you're gonna find within the expat community and even within the locals, there'll be people that, particularly if they're in the tourism areas and everything,
Right.
they're gonna. Yeah.
I always feel a little bit guilty about that,
Yeah.
when you're sitting next to somebody from Germany who speaks 5 languages and
Right.
they're like, well, I had to learn all these languages. And you're like, well, I kind of get by in my English.
Yeah, exactly. It's sort of, it's kind of a blessing and a curse at the same time, I would say.
Yeah.
Because, on the one hand, it's really convenient. I know English is my first language. I can go around and I already know it. But at the same time, it's like, shit, I only really can speak English.
Yeah, you
I
just...
wish I was forced.
I feel like the least talented expat,
Right.
in a community when you're like, oh, you're from France, you're from Germany, like, they're from all over the place.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, of course I speak 6 languages.
Right.
And you're like, "Oh."
Yeah, and then, like, and if you're hanging out, say, with, I don't know, some French or German backpackers, or, they can have, like, a secret language in code. Like, talk with each other. I don't have a secret code I can talk to anyone in.
Yeah, no, I just have to make facial expressions and...
Yeah.
Or speak poor Spanish.
Yeah, right. But, I guess you, as you went along, I'm sure you picked up some more.
Definitely. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, my Spanish definitely improved. I think because I was there for so long, I probably should have invested in some tutorials from like a local. But I kept being like, no, I'll be okay. I got my Rosetta Stone to remind me, and I've got, friends, and we'll go out to bars, and I'll have a drink, and I'll be fine. I'll just start picking up and remembering my Spanish. But I think that if I was going to stay there longer, in my next year, I really would have focused on learning the language because it opens so many more doors. Like, I would say that the people of Buenos Aires were very friendly and open to me, and they really worked with me when I was struggling to say something. But if I could have made just a little bit more of an effort, like a whole new world of possibilities would have opened up to me.
Yeah, I agree with that. For me, I spent most of the time, more time in Thailand than anywhere else, and I picked up a little bit of Thai, but for sure, similarly, if I go back to Thailand, if and when I go back, I just say, I will spend more time trying to learn more of the language and integrating more. Because, the more you can know, the easier it is to integrate, and the experience becomes just more exciting too, because you're going around and you're picking up on little pieces more of what's going on around you on like the day to day, and also you learn like with the language. It's I started to see how the culture and the language kind of go together,
Right.
and so and you start to pick up on things like, oh, okay, I understand, because you don't have a word for this, but you have and you can understand why. It's fascinating to start to understand more.
Yeah, definitely the cultural expressions,
Yeah,
the way
yeah.
that they phrase things as opposed,
Yeah, exactly. So I found that aspect's really interesting. So I mean, for you, you spent most of your time in Buenos Aires.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So I guess I'm interested. Like, what about Buenos Aires? I've never been to Buenos Aires myself. What about Buenos Aires was attractive to you as a place to, base up for some time?
That is a good question, because while we thought we did a lot of research, we really did none.
Well, you don't need to, right? You can just kind of wing it. That's the beauty of it.
Right. So we were thinking, we made a list of things that were important to us. We wanted a nice climate, a place that was pretty sunny all year round, a place that was on the water, because we assumed that there would be good seafood. We wanted a place that was kind of relatively close to other countries, so if we could travel, we could do that easily. Things like that. Oh, language. We wanted a country where the language was a little bit more obtainable.
Okay.
We felt like, we considered Japan, but
Right.
our ability to pick up Japanese would probably be a lot slower. So we thought, as our first big travel abroad trip, we should probably try something a little bit more manageable. So those were the reasons that we chose Buenos Aires. We get down there, and I have to say, we got down there in September of 2013, and it was cold. It was like 30, 40 degrees. We had not brought any winter clothes. It was windy and raining for like that first month that we were there. Now, granted, that is unusual for Buenos Aires.
Yeah.
But we were like, oh my God, what the fuck did we decide to do? like, why are we here?
So it's wintertime over there, right? Because
Yeah.
the seasons are opposite.
Yeah,
So
it was starting to be spring,
Right.
but we were like, oh my God, this is not what we expected. And I will say this, Buenos Aires does not have great seafood, which was a huge bummer to me, because I love good seafood. And so we were like, sushi is a very important part of my life.
Right.
And
Japan would have been a good choice for that.
it would have been. It totally would have been. But, and we just thought that Argentina would have a bigger handle on the sushi industry.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know why we thought that. That was just silly and ridiculous. But we found other things to love.
Well, interestingly, I found
Buenos
sushi.
Aires.
I found sushi in Thailand, which I wasn't really expecting to find.
Well, I mean, I'll say you can find sushi in Argentina. It's mostly cream cheese.
Oh, okay.
It's like seaweed, rice, cream cheese,
Okay.
and like maybe some imitation crab.
Right.
Just
right.
the quality isn't there. But that's just, it's their palates, things like that. And seafood in general is not very common in Buenos Aires. If you go to Ushuaia, which is like the most southern tip of Argentina, they do excellent seafood.
Okay, you made a trip out there.
Yeah. I had to go to the end of the world,
That's true. Yeah. Is that the place where you can see Antarctica from, or is that?
You can take a boat that will then you can go. It's like a 5-day boat trip, which we missed by 3 days. The last boat going out to Antarctica, which we were told, we were ready to put down the money. We're like, when else are we going to have this experience? And we missed the last boat by 3 days. But, we still got to see penguins and seals and...
So there you can see them. They hang out.
Oh yeah,
in
they're
Argentina.
on the southern
Really?
tip. Yeah,
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, it's a really cool place. I loved Ushuaia, and the food was amazing, and and if you love backpacking and hiking and really seeing natural wonders, skiing, Ushuaia has got it all.
It's awesome. Yeah, so you were there. I'm assuming though you were there when it was this summertime, in December-ish. You were going to go to Antarctica. You wouldn't go into maybe a little bit warmer. I don't know.
Yeah. So the reason why we missed the last boat was because we were at the end of the summer season, close to the fall season, and so they have to stop it at a certain point because
it's too cold.
It gets too cold and it gets dangerous with icebergs and that sort of thing.
They still have skiing at that time, in the summertime there.
Not. So where we were, it was all mountainous, and so they have all the ski slopes there, which they usually convert into just like you can go on I've never been skiing, so whatever the thing
Okay,
is.
so you didn't go skiing there.
I did not go skiing, but they have it there, and it's like really well known to like go skiing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
But we went hiking.
Right, I was gonna say usually Colorado I think is a similar thing, right?
Yeah,
like
we did some like all-terrain vehicle activity, and it's really, really fun.
Oh, awesome. So with all this awesome experience, what is something else you'd want to do in your life that you haven't done yet?
So I'm torn. I've always wanted to travel in Africa. Like since I was a little girl, I've dreamed about going on safari. But I think I'm more interested right now in going to Southeast Asia. I really want to go to Bali, and I don't know, there's something about that culture that really draws me in.
Yeah.
And so the safari can wait. I think if you gave me $1 million tomorrow, or even just enough for a round trip ticket, I would choose probably Southeast Asia and starting in Indonesia and moving my way through.
Yeah. Well, you can do them both, why not?
Yeah.
I mean, those are actually two things that are on my list actually also. I've never been to Africa, and I definitely am intending to go to Africa at some point. I don't know where or when exactly, but that's there. And obviously I've been to Southeast Asia, but Indonesia is the one spot I did not hit yet. Bali in particular, Bali has been on my mind, and so I have this. It's really funny because I have a very similar set of places to go and things to do. I'm hoping maybe to hit Bali later this year at some point. For now, I think stillness is a good thing for me. For at least a little bit.
You need breaks. I feel like travel in itself is an adventure, but there always gets to be a point where the adventure becomes just going home.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that in many ways the return home was the most intense and craziest part of the whole experience for me. Like coming back home with new eyes. And,
Yep.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, that's the thing. So you come back and you know that you've changed, and you have a hard time necessarily vocalizing those differences in yourself. And I think other people suspect them, and it's sometimes hard, I don't know, to just take up the relationships where you left them off. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think it helps bring a lot of clarity and kind of like substance to your relationships, but there's definitely a moment where you're like, I feel so different. Does anybody else like realize it, and do they still appreciate me in the same way?
Yeah, and it's sort of like because when you're abroad, right, and you meet new people, you already are automatically that new person, and then they see you as only that new person immediately, and you come home and people are gonna at first think of you as the person you were when you left, maybe, and I know what you mean, like internally you feel so different. Although I think over time people eventually will take, I mean, not even that you have to explain it like, oh, I'm different because of this way, but I think eventually people like you're acting differently, right? You can't even help it, even if you didn't want to act differently, like you're gonna be acting different, and people eventually say, oh wow, something's different, huh?
Yeah. No, I mean, I have different interests. Like, for example, I was mildly into yoga before I went to Argentina, but I started taking classes at this place called Buena Onda in Buenos Aires, and it's a fabulous yoga studio, but it really kind of changed my perspective about what yoga could be in my life, and it helped me develop a practice, which I feel super kooky and weird saying, but
why is that? No, that's cool.
I mean, I love that that's now a part of my life, and it's something that I do. But I know that is something very concrete that is different about me, and it changes the way I interact with others because of my yoga practice. That's
a lot of people. It's a very common thread I find, like you get into yoga or meditation, these kind of practices after coming back from a trip. It's I mean, maybe it's the types of people that are the explorers, traveling the world. You're also kind of, I mean, I think of yoga and meditation, these are kind of like, consciousness exploration of sorts, right? So you're sort of, it makes sense that these kind of go together, right?
Yeah, it's the reflection.
Yeah, exactly. And so I've been kind of seeking out I went to a little bit of meditation stuff. I'm having difficulty finding a regular meditation group, but if I can't find them, I'll just make it here.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's something that I can relate to for sure. I mean, the meditation yoga thing coming back I think it's a good thing to have in life. It helps a lot.
Yeah, definitely.
So folks that want to find your book, they would go to leanpub.com is the best place for it.
Well, there's kind of two websites. There is our junipertreebook.com, which is actually where you can read about some of the authors. You can read some of the stories for free if
All
you
right.
want to get a little bit of a taste
Yeah,
of like what's
preview.
going on. And kind of gives you an overview of the book itself. And it does have a link to the Lean Pub site,
Okay.
leanpub.com/Juniper Tree. And that's the place where you can actually purchase the book. And yeah, and you can also see samples there too if you really want to get a taste of what's going on between the pages.
Awesome. And Juniper is Juniper. And all the what I'll do for folks though who are listening, as always, I will compile the links to the ways to find you on our website. So each episode comes with a show notes and blog write up at WTEpodcast.com. So you can go there, and I will have the links for you to find Juniper Tree and to find Lauren. Are you on like Twitter or anything else that you want to blast out to people?
We are on Twitter.
Okay.
That would be at Juniper Tree Book.
Okay. Cool.
And Facebook, also Juniper Tree Book.
Awesome. And so find Lauren and Juniper Tree there. The links will be on the show notes of this episode at WTEpodcast.com. Thank you, Lauren, for coming on the show. It was really awesome chatting with you.
No, thank you for having me. It was really great. And I hope that if you're listening and this sounds like a book that's interesting to you, then please reach out, whether you have a story or you're just interested in learning more. I'm always available and ready to answer questions.
Yeah, I mean, if someone wants to contribute a story, should they email you? What's the best way to get in touch?
Yeah, so on the website, there is a spot where you can actually get in contact with me.
On the Lean Pub website.
Actually,
that's how I got in touch with you.
Yep, you can do it on the Lean Pub website. You can also do it on the web on the junipertreebook.com website.
Okay.
Either one has links to my email address.
And Lauren's pretty responsive. That's how I got in touch. I filled out the little box and said, hey, So I go there and she'll be happy and friendly and responsive. And especially if you have a great travel story as a female traveler.
I'll be nice to you if you're a man.
Even if you're a man, just nice to me. So awesome. And so folks listening, if you like this, what you're hearing here, you can hear more stories and conversations with other travelers doing different things. Our show, Walking the Earth Podcast, is on SoundCloud, iTunes, or Stitcher. Subscribe at any of the above places. You can find us on Facebook or on Twitter at WTE Podcast. And again, our website is WTEpodcast.com. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And Lauren, thank you again for stopping in and having a chat. And for now, we will say hasta luego from Baltimore, Maryland.